How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. I'm B for Vernon, and welcome back to the chat in which I speak about interesting things with interesting people. And so we got Elizabeth Hobson back, and also
talking to interesting people.
Right, and also got Goodfella back. We had a chat with him a few weeks ago. Welcome back to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So what brings us all here today? So the subject is video games. So whenever we hear about video games, it's usually about how, they're bad for boys and it causes them to fail to launch. Anywhere from that to they cause mass shootings or something. But we think that not only they're not bad for boys, we think they're great. So who wants to start off saying their piece on that one, now that I've broken the ice? Good fella?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think that the whole mistake is that they think that life imitates art, whereas art imitates life. You can't really blame video games for violence. Although there's violence in video games, young kids, know the difference between a video game and real life. They know that they shouldn't smack their head off a brick wall to get coins. Kids are not stupid. And it's the people, usually people who don't have kids, who think kids are really stupid, and they think that if they steal a car in Grand Theft Auto, they're going to go and steal a car in real life, or they think that if they die in real life, they'll spawn back at a hospital or something. You know what I mean? It's so kids are not that stupid. They know it's a game and they're fun. And you get these arguments all the time where people cherry pick different things. I remember I made a video about Grand Theft Auto 5. People were criticising that, and they were saying that it was sexist. And I went through the whole game, all the different missions, and in the entire game, in order to complete the entire game, only 3 women have to be killed, and even then you don't even kill them. They get killed during the game. Whereas thousands of men have to get killed, and yet it's called sexist towards women. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't seem, that doesn't seem like logical. But it doesn't matter what the art form is, whether it's music or video games or books. There's always people that are going to say those things are to blame for the bad things in real life. And well, they're idiots. They just are. They're idiots.
Absolutely. Well, for my part, I'm not a gamer. I have gamed once or twice and I've had a lark. But, what I have done is spawned 2 gamers and seen the bloody magic that games can bring into people's lives, and when you have 2 boys like I do, you find, they have a bit of a love-hate relationship, and, there's a lot of fighting and brawling, and the games can bring them together. And I don't want to just defend games against the accusations that they cause harm. I actually think that they have a significantly positive impact on an awful lot of gamers. And, although I don't game and can't speak from my personal experience, I do read. And one of the things I've been reading about recently is all the ways in which the gamer's brain is superior to the brain of the non-gamer. And so we're talking their spatial awareness, so they can test how people can navigate in the real world. And gamers, people who game for an hour a day or more, are better able to navigate the real world than non-gamers. Memory is better when you're a gamer. There are all kinds of studies that show positive effects, and I think that's great because the kids love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'd also like to say that, against people who say it's an asocial experience or even worse, an antisocial experience, I don't see it that way at all. I mean, it brings people together, be it in the same room or nowadays across the world now.
Mhm.
And it's even great for father and son bonding, because we're always talking about how gaming kind of takes us away from our families and the real world or whatever, but it appears to be the opposite to me. I mean, especially the more video games evolve, that's the way it becomes more truthful, I think. Yeah, because go ahead.
I was going to say that you talk about father-son bonding. I think it can parent-child bonding. There's a game that me and my son were playing, or is it my son and I always get them mixed up. Anyway, we were playing a few weeks ago called It Takes Two. It's a new game, right? The only issue is it keeps crashing my PC for some reason. It's very frustrating. But what a game this is! This is a two-player game. You have to play. You can only play two-player. You can't play single-player, right? And it's all about cooperation, and it's about a husband and a wife, right? And they're going through a divorce, and their daughter is sad about this, and she's got these dolls, and she cries, and when she cries, she makes a wish, and then the two parents turn into these dolls, so they're miniature throughout the whole game, and then they go on this adventure, and they learn to cooperate, and it's what a game it is for two-player, and it's like you say, it brings people together. Games bring people together, even when you're not playing them. It's a topic of conversation that other people, you can get involved in. You go to work and you speak to people about the game or whatever. I mean, I don't know how many Russians I've met and played games with, just online. It's absolutely unbelievable. But games are definitely a good thing. And I mean, when I was younger, I played games with my dad on the ZX Spectrum. That was we had the old rubber keyboard thing, We had that in the house with all the cassettes that the games were on. And the amount of games we had, it was just constant, like Chucky Egg and Halls of the Things and Horace Goes Skiing and all that kind of stuff. The really real old school games, But it was definitely, my dad would have a shot, and then I would have a shot and try to beat him, and then he'd try to beat me, and now I do that with my son, and he's actually quite good at some things, Obviously I'm the best, but I think he can hear me. That's why I'm saying that. But it definitely brings people together more than it causes anything negative. It's definitely more positive, I think, anyway.
Yeah. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Oh, well, yeah, I was just gonna, agree with that sentiment, really. I do play with my boys sometimes, and it's so much fun, but it brings out really lovely kind of sides of people. And so our two-player game is Unravel 2, which is about two creatures called Yarnies, who are made of string, and they get shipwrecked and then have to find their way back to some place following sparkly things and save all these other Yarnies. And also you follow this shadowy kind of backstory of these two children who are escaping from the clutches of sinister adults. And everything you do kind of, every time you complete a level, they get to move on as well. So, it's got that kind of depth of storytelling too. But also, as you say, you have to cooperate, because there are sort of, parts of the game where you need both of you to be doing something simultaneously to get through. And, it's a puzzle game. So, it's really good for your kind of cognitive abilities. But then, also I love, my favorite game, as is the sort of game of choice for non-gamers, is Mario Kart. I absolutely love that game, and that brings any number of people together. That's so to play, and Granny and Grandma can
64.
on Mario Kart. It's simple enough to be able to share with everyone. But I mean, one of my fondest recent memories is I was playing Super Smash Brothers, with my boy, my 9-year-old. He was 8 at the time, and he is like a bad weapon on the Nintendo Switch. It's insane. He is like skills, man. And we're playing, and I just can't do it. It's way beyond my abilities. And I managed to beat him twice. And, you know, when we're playing Super Smash Brothers, like, we're trash talking the arses off each other. It's proper trash talking. And I think trash talking is a very underrated pastime. I managed to beat him twice, you know, and was suitably immodest in my celebrations. And I started boasting to his dad the next day. My 9-year-old was like, you know, I let you win, right? And I was like, oh no, it's suddenly all the pieces fit into place. And I was like, of course he did. But then I was like, you know what? That's really bloody sweet of him to think, oh, mum's like played 50 rounds and she's still like jumping off of platforms into the void over and over again. I'll just let her get a couple of hits in.
Right. Yeah. Like, you know, just a couple years ago, to add to this kind of parental bonding thing, like in the place I used to work with, one of my coworkers, this was when Pokemon Go was new, right? And he said that he was getting some well-needed father and son time playing Pokemon Go in his personal life, and he was really, you know, talking about how awesome it was, like before our stand-up meeting and something like that. And I'm thinking back to my own experience. I think it was when we first got our first PS1 back in Japan, actually. And my dad's an American, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Like occasionally I catch him like playing this kind of. I won't say the name of the game. It's only released in Japan, but it's kind of like a competitive Tetris kind of a side by side kind of a thing, right? I don't know. I just have some fond memories about him. You know, my.
Is it Poi Poi? Is it that one? No.
It's different from Puyo Puyo. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, right. Because my friends used to play Puyo Puyo. We never got that one because that was on a different console, and because I think that was Sega, I think. But yeah, it's like now the only difference is like I could never beat my dad at anything. So but still, it's pretty fun to play with him.
Yeah, actually, now you say that that you could never beat your dad at anything, it reminds me of something that one of my friends told me, because our eldest boy is severely dyslexic, and I have a friend who is also severely dyslexic and also super successful, and he told me that, you know, when he was at school, much like our eldest, he was kind of not supported very well and struggling and feeling very low on the old self-esteem. And then he got into gaming, and, you know, it didn't take too long before he found that he could beat adults at games. And, you know, that kind of started to build up his confidence that he had abilities and he wasn't a complete failure. So
right. That's one of the advantages of gaming as well, is that it's almost subliminal, where the kids are learning to read, you know, and because there's a lot of writing in games now, and it's just they don't realize they're learning. They just pick all these wee things up, and I think that's quite handy as well. Just an extra thing that you don't make them play a game to learn how to read, but it's just an extra thing where the subtitles are on, a lot of characters speaking, especially like RPGs and stuff, and, you know, and they're picking all this up as long as the translation is right. But you mentioned trash talking earlier, right, Elizabeth? Would you agree with me that that's kind of a male thing, trash talking?
Well, yeah, I would say that it is. You know, when I was gaming as a teenager, that was my favourite part, trash talking. But I don't think I'm overly typical for a woman in that regard. You know, and whilst I'm sure there are a lot of women who are perfectly happy and comfortable and having a good time within the whole trash talking sphere, you know, there are countless op-eds that you can find online by women going like, and then he called me a slut. And it's like, yeah, but what did he call the guy next to you?
Exactly.
You know, it's really, I find it really weak. And, you know, I think that these days in particular, it's particularly healthy to have an environment where political correctness does not reign supreme and everyone can have a right go at each other and not get upset about it. You know, it's like retraining us in a kind of civility that has been lost in society to a great extent, and it's a civility of dignity, of being able to take harsh words.
Men seem to do it outside gaming as well. It's just the way men interact with each other, whereas women do it behind each other's backs. You know, because even if it's in a gaming environment, you can trash talk anybody, but when there's a woman, you kind of feel, I need to know if she can take it first, because you know, she might be one of those sensitive ones who ends up reporting you for, you know what I mean, where, you know, it's just, I don't know, I should treat them the same, but you know, women they're just wired different when it comes to that. Vernon will know what I mean, but guys we just slag each other off. You know what I mean? And it's usually about sexuality, usually, you know, or something like that. And it's just water off a duck's back. We don't take it seriously. We know it's just a bit of fun. But with women, like you say, you call her a bitch or something like that. Yeah. She might take that to heart. She might actually get offended at that. And it's like, oh, I wasn't meaning that you're a bitch. I was just trying to wind you up, you know. Yeah. And you know, but it's just it's a funny subject. But I do think that's kind of a male thing, you know.
Yeah, I mean. The thing, because I've been having some games of Commander with my friend, with two separate play groups. Now we're talking like something outside of video games. We're talking Magic the Gathering now, because I've been playing a few games in the past week, and you know, I mean that rings true, right? You know, we trash talk each other, like you know, when somebody board wipes or like screws over with some combo you have or something like that. Stupid bitch, you know. I mean, you know, like fuck you. You know, we have fun with the politics, you know, of who gets attacked and stuff like that, and then we trash talk when we're the ones that get screwed over, and so yeah, that does ring true.
Yeah, but the question here is, should we be doing what a lot of kind of platforms do seem to be doing and having that report abuse button? Or should we be, you know, saying, look, these are the rules. You can swear at each other. You can like call each other names. It's a game, man.
It has affected
maybe we need kind of separate platforms for like easily triggered people and like normal people.
But they want to be triggered though, so they just go in where the normal people
are.
And Grand Theft Auto Online, right? There's a real irony, right, where you can't swear, right? See if you go in the chat and you swear, like you say fuck or shit or something, it won't come up and it'll be asterisks, right? And it was just really funny to me where I bought a cocaine factory, right, to make cocaine, but I wasn't allowed to swear, and I'm just thinking, this doesn't seem right. Where I'm in a game and I'm buying a cocaine factory and I can't swear. What? How does that make sense? How does that make any sense? But it's because they're just saving themselves lawsuits. I think that's what it is. They're just not saving.
This is a family cocaine factory, you know.
Right. It's really it's just weird, like buying a cocaine factory in a meth lab, you know, and yet you can't say shit, and it's like it's something. It just doesn't really seem. It's very strange, very very strange. But I know why they're doing it. It's because, you know, if somebody calls somebody else the N-word, you know, which I'm only saying because I'm on Vernon's stream, by the way. I don't, you know what I mean? That's the only reason I'm not saying the word. But if somebody says that, you know, then Rockstar might have to have some lawsuit because somebody got upset.
Right.
So it's just to save them any bother. They just go, right, okay, no swearing then,
Yeah,
and
I mean, yeah,
people just find a way.
Yeah, it's almost like an opportunity for that company to virtue signal. I think it's like, you know, because you know the thing about, you know, about women being, you know, trying to signal that they're feeling harassed because somebody was talking too tough or something like that, and it turns into like a, you know, as a woman I felt harassed or something like that. And so, and these companies just seem to kind of keep on, you know, building these changes based on these small but loud voices, I think.
Yeah,
Because they are a minority. They are a very small minority, but they're very loud.
they are, but I think that half the time, you know, they're not gamers. The people who are getting upset about things that happen. You know,
like Anita Sarkeesian was she was complaining about the Hitman game, and she said that in the game, you know, you can kill strippers, but you don't have to do that. So she must have chose to do that.
Yeah.
So doesn't that say more about her than it does about the game? Because there's no mission in the game where you have to do that. So
my understanding though was that Anita Sarkeesian isn't even a gamer.
Oh, she's not a gamer.
Some fella wrote her scripts for her.
But even then, she's still wrong, and you know, she's just trying to find. As I said earlier, whenever there's a medium that's popular, these people will try to latch onto it and say this affects my demographic, you know, therefore it has to change. And I'll always go back to the point I make, where unless you're forced to play the games, then just leave it alone. You don't, and nobody's forcing Anita Sarkeesian to play Hitman. You know what I mean? You know, so why can she not just leave it alone and let people who want to play it and have fun?
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. Yeah.
But these people like to be offended. I think that's part of their MO. They just like to be, so they seek out things that they'll find offensive, you know, just so that they can be offended.
Another positive thing about video games is just experiencing this brilliant product, this brilliant art that these developers create, right? Like now, you know, now we're talking about games that I haven't played, but I might like to. So you're familiar with Cuphead, right?
Oh, Cuphead, aye.
Yeah, right.
I've not played it, but I know what it is.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it looks really. I mean, the whole premise artistically is just so interesting to me. It's like trying to recapture that old, you know, Mickey Mouse kind of aesthetic here, and you know, this, you know, it looks interesting, but at the same time, you know, it's already getting kind of, you know, it's getting lambasted because, oh, this is evocative of more racially insensitive eras or something like that. You know, it's just, you know, just because of the very old aesthetic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh God, that is clutching at straws, isn't it?
Well, it's when it comes to black people specifically, they seem to be the only group that you can't mock in any way without it being called racist, you know, because if you look at somebody like Groundskeeper Willie, right? I don't know any Scottish person that takes offence at Groundskeeper Willie. Some of the things that guy says could be deemed offensive, but we don't care. We think it's funny. You know, we like being represented in a show like The Simpsons, you know. But when you go to these old Disney cartoons and it shows you like maybe it's got a black character and they've got big lips or something, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, that's racist. And it's like, but without meaning, I'm not trying to be horrible here, but black people tend to have big lips. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. And it was in recently where the Dr. Seuss books, you know, where they were saying, oh, the Chinaman, he's seen eating with sticks and he's got you know, thin eyes, and it's like, but Chinese people do have thinner eyes and they do eat with sticks. How is that offensive? It's just that you just can't win. So the only people you can lampoon are white people.
Right.
Very tiresome. Very tiresome.
Well, it is like the whole Apu thing in The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Do you know what? The other day there was an article, right? There's one of the gay characters in The Simpsons, very side character, hardly ever in the show, right? and he's now being voiced by a gay actor, and it's like, seriously, who cares? I mean, why does a gay character have to be voiced by a gay actor? Does that mean that a gay actor can't voice a straight character? I mean, is that where we're going to go with this?
Right.
Because who cares? At the end of the day, it's a cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I've forgotten his name, but the guy who voiced Apu actually apologized.
Hank Azaria.
Yeah.
Hank Azaria.
Yeah, he apologized.
I know.
And it's like, for what? Doing your job, like acting, really? But it's like, it's also the disparity between what's acceptable is so ridiculous, because it's not just, about groundskeeper Willie lampooning Scottish people. Like, my eldest in his last year at primary school read a book called Journey to Joburg. Have you come across that one, Alex?
No, I don't know that. Never heard of that.
It's set in apartheid South Africa, and it's about a little boy and girl, black boy and girl, who live in a village, and their sister gets sick, so they have to make their way to Johannesburg to get their mum to come back to take the kid to hospital. And we had to read it at home for sort of homework.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reading it with my boy, and every white character is mean and malevolent.
Of course.
Every black character is real nice. And my boy's going, seems a bit racist. And I'm like, yeah, well, I know, but I mean, you've got to contextualize it. There was this unfair system, and and perhaps let's just carry on reading. And we got to the very end, and literally there is not one single pleasant white character who does anything good. They're all absolute monsters. And then I looked it up online, and I came up with the website of the woman who wrote it. And she is a white anti-racist campaigner from South Africa. And she really blatantly says, this book is meant to radicalize children to be anti-racist campaigners. And it's like, that passes for education. But, someone who is straight or white can't play anyone who isn't straight and white.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, neither extreme is healthy, but the fact that they can both exist simultaneously is bizarre to me.
But kids aren't stupid, as I said, though. Mm-hmm. They've not had years of indoctrination, so they're not stupid, and they can see it for what it is. Most of them, I think, to give them credit, I think most of them can see it for what it is. And it's silly as well trying to indoctrinate kids, because kids rebel. They like to rebel. And when you tell them this message that white people are bad, everybody else is good, they're just going to go against that. They're not going to take that in and believe it. They're going to rebel against it. And you're actually almost creating white supremacists for the future. Almost.
To be perfectly honest, I think that the kind of just completely unhinged level of anti-racist, feminist, pro LGBTQ or STUV, whatever, campaigning that's going on, and the indoctrination that people are being subject to, I think in all likelihood it can only lead to increased disaffection for ethnic minorities, women, and not straight people, not cis straight shitlords. Realistically,
well, it's kind of racist to, if you're at work, right? Say you're on lunch break or something, and there's a black person there, right, and you don't know them.
Yep.
If you if you don't treat them like you would treat a white person, well, that's kind of racist, right? But a lot of white people are going to walk on eggshells because a lot of black people instantly play the victim as soon as something doesn't go their way. So they don't want to tell jokes in front of them. They don't want to have any camaraderie because it might be,
misinterpreted.
Taken the wrong way. So they end up walking on eggshells, and black people are going to notice this. And they're going to notice that, hang on, John over there, he talks to everybody, but he doesn't talk to me. He jokes with everybody, but he doesn't joke with me. What's going on? And it's because he probably thinks you call him a racist, Yeah. So he's trying to avoid all that because he's been told by all the media that you're sensitive, and therefore it's best to just completely avoid you altogether and not include you in anything. And that ends up being kind of racist in itself. The white person protecting themselves become racist by trying to not be racist, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, it does.
Yeah. And how can we segue this back into the topic of conversation?
Okay, games.
It kind of goes back to the, we need to be free to trash talk each other kind of thing, because, at college, I went to a couple of colleges, and one of them was like 99% black. And, the other kind of percentage was mostly like from kind of various places in India, and like 3 white people or something.
Did you hold your bag tight? That was a joke. That was a joke. This is what I mean. I can't help myself. But I mean, that's the kind of thing I would say, and then somebody would take offence when I'm clearly just joking. But whatever.
But no, this would have been what? Hang on. If I was like 20, then it would have been like 2008. Yeah, and like what we used to do for fun was trash talk each other, but like because it was a very racially mixed environment, the sort of topics of our like trash talk it was all racial slurs, and like you would gain status and prestige by putting someone down in the most creative way that referenced their race. And it was fun, and it was like educational, because someone would like say something about someone's the kind of food that is eaten in their country of origin, and you'd be like, oh, so that's what they eat over there. You'd like pick up little things, and it was just a great sort of leveler, and it made something that could be kind of isolating, because everyone's very different. It made us all the same because we were all just shitlords. And I wonder what the environment in that college is like now. I can't imagine it's the same these days.
Probably not.
And how are people bonding now? If they're just trying to be really polite and not mention that they've noticed that people are different.
I think maybe they're bonding through their victimhood. Do you know what I mean?
Bonding through their common enemy.
Yes. Yeah, because everybody's a victim these days. You've probably noticed.
Yeah. Bonding through a common enemy. Have you heard that before?
Yes. I mean, it's true though, right? I mean, if everybody's enemy is either straight white or male, they can bond through their hatred of the straight white male. It's I mean, I'm entirely in that demographic, but I just find it funny, that I don't get offended that people hate me for that. I just think it's funny,
Yeah, well, it's ridiculous and pathetic, isn't it? But Vernon is you're white now, aren't you, or like super white or something?
Well, I'm actually white now.
I was actually told today, somebody on Twitter said today that Asian Americans count as white.
Yeah.
Just like you're a complete moron. They're clearly not white. Why would you call them white?
How many Asian Americans are shot by police?
Well, I mean, there's clear differences between the races, and the thing with Asians tend to be, if they commit crime, which is rare, it's usually in-house, and they don't really make a big deal about it. It's usually in-house in their own community,
Yeah.
but then they've got a very strong like family unit. They believe in the family unit, the mum, the dad, and they respect their elders, and other communities, without naming names, they don't do that as much, and it all has an effect.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And, they're also particularly well equipped cognitively for the sort of world that we have these days, and if you look at the kind of demographics that are working within games, it's men, which is sexist, and it's whites and Asians, which is clearly racist, and so how are we going to fix that problem?
You say that, have you noticed that a lot of games, right? I don't know if you've noticed it recently, right? A lot of games have that disclaimer at the start when you load the game, and it says this game was made by a mix of sexes, races, religious.
You know more about that than me because I haven't caught up with the latest games, but I'll take your word for it.
Seriously, if when you load up a game, I think every Ubisoft game does this. Grand Theft Auto does it. All the latest ones do it, and it lets you know that this game was made by a diverse cast of sexes, genders, races, religious beliefs. It's so that if there's anything offensive in the game, they can then say, "Oh well, come on, we've got a diverse team here." So,
yeah.
and it's just to cover themselves.
Didn't mind.
Yeah, I mean it's all to serve their ends though, and when it doesn't, they kind of throw it out the window. Like, do you remember? Do either of you remember the Blitz Chung incident?
No, I don't know.
No?
Don't know about that. Blitz
Okay,
Chung?
so it's sort of I suppose it counts as video games, but so it's basically a Chinese player of the game Hearthstone, right? It's like Magic the Gathering except it's all digital. So he was a competitor, right? And he got suspended for saying "Free Hong Kong" in a stream. The same company, Blizzard. Blizzard's the company that does Hearthstone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they got so much. Blizzard got so much deserved flack for that. It's like they're going on about diversity this and Black Lives Matter that, but they would suspend a Chinese guy saying "Free Hong Kong."
Did they lose a lot of users over that?
I think so. I mean, it was pretty embarrassing for Blizzard. They were full damage control, is my understanding of it. Yeah, the hypocrisy was just blatant. So it was like a hot subject among the community.
Yeah, speaking of politics and gaming, I came across a couple of articles. One was about Joe Biden's Animal Crossing island. Was they actually, when they realized what was being done by his team, they changed the rules so that you couldn't bring politics into Animal Crossing.
Wow. Okay.
But then the other one was about how great Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is at integrating game references into her advocacy and stuff, and how hip she is.
Because she played Among Us.
They kind of, contrasted her with some comment that Hillary made when she said, "Everyone needs to Pokemon go to the polls,"
Yeah, that's
cringe.
Cringe.
But I mean, what is the, place for politics in games?
I mean, you could argue that the politicians, like AOC, right? You could argue that she's using a very popular medium to try to attract younger people, to her side. You could say that's a good move because I don't know if I could see any Republicans doing that, to be honest. You know, it is a bit cringe,
Well,
but
I mean, it'd fall flat, wouldn't it? It'd be like when David Cameron was like, "I like ball play," you know.
I think it would fall flat, but it's I don't know. I don't think I blame her for trying, you know, because at least she was using a popular game Among Us, and that's quite popular. I don't play it,
Yeah,
but
I suspect she probably has. I think that probably didn't hurt her at all.
nah,
You
probably not.
And to be honest, you know, I don't see any particular problem with people talking about things they genuinely like, and she probably genuinely likes it. You know, the Animal Crossing thing, that is, I think, not an appropriate platform for political campaigning personally, and you know, the makers decided that it wasn't, and so, you know, I think that was resolved in a reasonable fashion. But you know, I suppose I think like of this kind of music I like, and a lot of that has, you know, some very strident left-wing messaging. You know, there's some music I like that I actually agree with, and some with no political messaging at all, you know, and I think that probably, you know, I think that there is space in games for overtly political messaging. Are the games that have like overtly political messaging?
I think so. I mean, a lot of it's like
the machine of gaming.
but a lot of it's fiction, you know, like but you can tell that maybe it's sometimes based off reality, you know, like something like Splinter Cell. Well, I don't know if you've ever played Splinter Cell, but it'll reference things like what America's up to in other countries and stuff like that. You know, but it's not too much. You know, if you can still play the game, it depends how they go about it. You know, because it's always fictional characters, and if there's a president in a game, they very rarely mention whether they're Republican or Democrat. It's just the president. You know, so it's basically just America, and they don't mention the politics. But with the Biden thing and Animal Crossing, I don't know. I don't know what happened there. I'd have to see it. But if he's playing or his team rather, are playing Animal Crossing, you know, and they're saying in that, you know, vote for Biden or whatever, I really don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, kids can't vote for a start, right? So they don't care. They don't care, right? They don't know who Biden is, right? Anybody who's actually going to play a game like that and vote for Biden because he said in that game to vote for Biden, I mean, they're already lost, right? You know, I mean, should we care? Should we really care about them? You know,
well, it was good for a laugh. There is like, you know, the article I found had a video of it, of some guys playing on it, and I was watching it with my eldest, and we were just on the floor laughing. He's got like a campaign office, and there are you know, Biden, Harris flags everywhere, and we were just like, this is so lame. Right. You know, I suppose it would probably backfire. You know, it falls flat with Joe Biden in the same way that it would with,
excuse me,
you know, a lot of Republican candidates. You know, whereas with AOC, it's kind of plausible that she might actually do some gaming in her spare time. So, you know, it kind of.
Well, my problem would be, right, if AOC was playing Among Us, right, and she was playing the game and she said, "Hey, vote for me," right? Yeah. That's fine, right? But then if Trump then also played Among Us and said, "Hey, vote for me," and then got banned, that's what I'd have a problem with.
Exactly.
You know, I don't care. Yeah. I don't care if they're using the games to promote whatever they're promoting, because almost everybody does it. I mean, some people's usernames are X on YouTube or something, you know, it's, you know, so that you'll know who they are. Yeah. I really don't care either way. But if people are getting banned because they have the wrong politics, I'm against. I'm totally against that.
Right.
Well, yeah, and that might in fact have been, you know, why Animal Crossing made the decision to just ban political kind of messaging on their platform. Right. Although, you know,
it's a kids game, right?
And they kind of strayed strangely woke because they have Toy Day, not Christmas, and like Bunny Day, not Easter.
But
And
then
stuff.
their game is going all around the world though, not just in Christian countries. So I don't know if that's woke rather than just being like safe, so that they can sell their game in Saudi Arabia, or you know what I mean, that they can sell it in China or wherever else, you know, because not everybody celebrates Christmas, and it keeps it safe. You know, it's a safe option. You know, I could see how you think it's woke, but I don't know.
but
I think it's just kind of safe.
Should there be a case more than that? You know, maybe companies should kind of stop being these kowtowing, sort of people, and just kind of just make the games they want, and
Mhm.
you know, like
They should.
forget about who's not going to buy them. Just abide by the marketplace, I guess. You know, just
Yeah.
go for their own audience, and just stop apologizing, I guess. You know?
Yes, they should. They should definitely stop
Yeah.
apologising
Hmm.
and make the game they want, and then just give it an adult rating. You know, if they think it's going to upset anyone.
Yeah. Who wants to appease China, really? I mean, like when you're, it just kind of just flies by my head, I guess. It's like, why do we want to please China at this point?
Because they're the biggest market, I think.
Well,
They're
yeah, but still,
they're a huge market. They've got a lot of money, you know, and that's why when Star Wars was in China, they took the black guy. I can't remember his name. They took the black guy off the poster, or they put him.
Right.
They made him smaller in the background in the poster, because a lot of Chinese people don't like black people. It's just a fact. It's just the way it is, you know.
Yeah,
So they did that to appease China, because the Chinese like Star Wars, but they don't like black people, and Disney want to make money off China, you know, and it's the same with the basketball thing. China has a lot of money, and they're in that to make money. So, you know, it's horrible to see trying to appease anybody, but it's just the way it works, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, my point still stands. Like, it's like, if you're going to sell to China, you're going to sell your soul, completely. And so it's just like, I'm just going to be this rogue and say, screw China.
Well, I mean, I imagine there's a lot of things they have to change, like Grand Theft Auto. When they bring Grand Theft Auto out, and when they brought Vice City out in Australia, they had to remove the blood, which is odd. In Japan, they had to remove certain words that were used. I can't remember exactly what it was, but some missions had to be changed. So every country they release the game in, they have to follow certain laws, because they don't want to upset the host nation or whatever. So this happens all the time, but I think China's just the most strict. So when a game comes out in China, everything has to change,
Yeah, but there is a difference between tailoring your content to be suitable for a host nation and banning an independent player who makes a comment that is political.
True. So that's not on. That's completely wrong. But it comes across like the Chinese government are very sensitive. They don't like any criticism at all, and that might end up being their downfall, because in the West, well, we're always criticising everybody. So that may actually be their downfall in the end. Their thin skin.
Yeah, it could be. Yep. All right, so going to shift gears a bit. So a lot of critics of video games and the boys that play them. Sounds like a new political party. They say that it's going to cause them to fail to launch. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I disagree. I mean, I've allowed my son to play games ever since he could pick up a controller, and it doesn't matter the game. Like I wouldn't always tell people, because a lot of women, right? They read the press and they believe what they're told. But my son's been playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas ever since he was like 5 or 6, right? But he doesn't actually play the game, like go through the story. He just likes to run about and drive the cars and stuff, and it's things like that. Like I remember I played Grand Theft Auto 4, the one with Nico, right? And in that game he can swim. He can't go under the water, but he can swim on top of the water, right? The normal, what is it? The breaststroke, forward stroke, whatever it's called. And that's the way he swims in the game, right? And he used to play this, and he used to love getting in the water and swimming about. And then I took him to swimming, the time capsule, right? Took him swimming there, and he copied what he's seen in the game, and he was able to swim for a while. And I just thought that was amazing. He said, and I'm just doing what Nico does in the game. And I was amazed that I didn't even need to show him how to do this. He learned this from the game. And I just thought it's little things like that are quite cool, you know. But maybe you could also argue, well, that means he knows how to fire a gun. But I don't think so. He doesn't have a gun, so I don't worry about it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being at a Battle of Ideas debate. I forget what the title was now, but it was about video game addiction. And there was this kind of, youngish man, and he was sitting there and he was telling this sob story, and he was like, when I was a teenager, all I wanted to do was game, and I couldn't do anything but game, and my whole life was just gaming. And then I stopped, and now I've got a job and like a girlfriend, and it's so good. And one of the other panelists turned around and went, "Congratulations, you grew up." And it's like, I think it's absolutely healthy for teenagers, especially, and young people, to get obsessed with stuff. And, male brains in particular are so good at focusing, and the games provide an ideal outlet to kind of hone those skills. And I think that they, have a really positive impact, on training boys to use their brains, to focus, to concentrate, to achieve what they set out to achieve, to experience the setbacks and to persevere. Which is a great training for the rest of your life when you decide to, enter into the rest of your life. And, it's like, I also think that when compared to a lot of other things that you could be obsessed by, it is particularly benign. And so if you look at what girls are doing on their smartphones and computers, it's like social media and stuff. And I think that's genuinely pretty dangerous in a way that games really aren't, because it's like people get, so, they both release dopamine. And in gaming, it's like, when you succeed and you achieve the aim of the game, when you complete things. But with social media, it's like when you get a like, when you get some kind of acknowledgement,
Right.
And I think that with games, you might move on to heavier things and more complex games.
Right.
More games with more depth or skill required, whatever. With social media, it's like, how do you get more of a hit when it starts to not, impact you in the same way? Well, it's like you reveal more and more of yourself, and all this stuff's going to be up forever, and you see so many young women just having absolutely zero boundaries with how much of themselves they're willing to expose online.
Right. Yeah. Because women are going to get more hits than men to begin with. So it's already pretty easy for them. It's only going to get easier. Yeah. So right. And compared to a video game where you actually might learn something productive, probably.
But you're taking part in a video game, though. I mean, you're actively taking part. Whereas if somebody's sitting, I don't know, watching soap operas or whatever, they're spending 4 or 5 hours a night just sitting there watching the screen, and they're not participating, they're not doing anything.
Right.
At least somebody playing a video game is mentally involved. They might not be physically involved unless they're playing VR.
Yeah.
But they're mentally involved, and it's they like the challenge. You know, they like accomplishing tasks. I mean, I think some parents might take it too far where they'll use the Nintendo or the PlayStation as a babysitter. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's rare, but I think that can happen.
Right.
But and they don't spend a lot of time with their kids, you know, and they go, oh, here, just play that, you know, and then they'll sit and watch TV or something.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, balancing those two extremes, you know, like the babysitter thing that you just said, and maybe kind of then the other end could be that a parent might think a video game is a 100% waste of time, and it has nothing but maligning sort of thoughts about it. You know, get off it, do something productive with your life, that kind of thing. But you know, I think that, like, if any kind of bad addictive kind of situation happens, it might be, you know, creating a situation in which you have to, you know, quote unquote sin to, you know, play the video games, and kind of just be more sneaky about it and trying to amass more time, you know, instead of going for your dinner or getting to bed or something like that. It's like, you know, maybe those, you know, you clearly don't have the problem because you're more balanced with your child, I think. So for the parents that aren't, you know, maybe they could be to some extent, you know, invested in in their son's success at the game. Maybe once they did something, you know, they cleared this objective in the game, then okay, get through that, then come have your dinner, I guess. I'm not a parent.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Like set them like like show an interest. You know.
Right.
So, I mean, the good thing about games is the variety as well. I know non-gamers, they think it's just Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto, right? But there's such a variety there that, I mean, anybody, no matter what age, sex, colour, whatever, anybody can play games. That's what's so great about games, where you could be playing a game online and you could be getting beat, and then you find out that it's some 8-year-old in Korea that's beating you. Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, that's what games are like. It could be some 72-year-old down in England somewhere, you know what I mean? And that's what's so great about games. It really does bring people together of all stripes.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And, you know, it's like, I mean, this kind of investing in this kind of, you know, well, like I said, the objectives, like in a given game, like, it's not unlike learning something on the guitar in my mind, you know? You know, it's just kind of, you know, being in your room and kind of being focused on something. And, I mean, I guess, you know, people think rock and roll is a waste of time, maybe especially back in the day, but, you know, it's kind of like that, you know, so, and, you know, they're wrong on both cases. I mean,
and you'll never stop either. With rock and roll, you'll never stop liking rock and roll. And me, I'll never stop playing games. I mean, until the day I die, I imagine I will be playing games. I don't see it as some kind of phase, you know. I love games, and I'll always play games.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of question the validity of this idea of the game addiction anyway.
Right.
You know, I'd say that people get obsessed with it, but like, I'm not sure how useful it is to label it as an addiction, you know, I mean, and which it is in the DSMV or whatever it is, you know, which
but is music not an addiction?
Health organization.
Right. Yeah.
Music's an addiction, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I would say, you know, addiction is not a necessarily useful terminology to use. You know, I think when we talk about addictions, we should be pretty bloody serious. And, you know, I don't believe in porn addiction either. You know, I know that people do it.
Or sex addiction.
Excessively, you know, and that they can forget to concentrate on their lives and all of this. But, you know, I mean, I picked up an article recently that was like, oh, yes, since the COVID pandemic, everybody's been really stressed and they've had all these money worries and, you know, they've been isolated. and we've seen this massive upturn in games addiction. And it's like, whoa. People are stressed and isolated and they've got money worries. That's the problem. The games is the one thing that's keeping them from topping themselves.
Right.
You know, like the idea that they are
like, yeah, it's like if they're not, you know, involved in something, like if they're not involved in something like games and they by default don't like them, and if somebody else plays it, it's an addiction. You know, it's like, you know, like play an hour, it's an addiction to them. You know, play 30 minutes is an addiction to them. You know, it's like if they're having too much fun, it's an addiction to them.
It's the bad press, I think. It's like when the media talk about games, maybe not so much now, but certainly at the turn of the century, it was always negative. They always talked about games as if it was a negative thing. But that was one of the things I wanted to mention about games. Another positive thing, especially for the younger generation, is it introduces them to good music, you know, because a lot of games have got really good music in them now, you know, a lot of games that come out, and even if it's like a football game, it's got a soundtrack in the background, and it's usually like classic rock and stuff, you know, so it introduces them to good music as well, especially games like Grand Theft Auto or Tony Hawk's, you know, skating games, Guitar Heroes and stuff. They listen to this, they play along, and they start to like the music, and that can only be a good thing, you know.
Yeah, that's also gonna, you know, connect them to their, you know, mums and dads and uncles and aunts and, you know, the people who remember that classic rock from when it came out, you know. It's like, it's beautiful, those moments where, like, you know, you as an adult who likes good music turn around and find your kid, like, you know, singing some Iron Maiden or something, and you're like, hey.
Yeah, and you know, that same music is the thing that they're maligning video games about now. Back in the day, you know, like rock and roll, you know, is, you know, evil devil stuff and makes you commit suicide, that kind of thing, you know. So, you know, that
I mentioned that to Vern in the last chat we had. I don't know if Elizabeth remembers this, where Radio 1 banned Iron Maiden. They didn't play the Iron Maiden when it got to number 1. Do you remember that? Are you old enough to remember that? I think it might have been in the late 80s when Iron Maiden.
That was Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, right?
Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter got to number 1, right? You know Elizabeth, Radio 1 has the top 40 on a Sunday, right? And they've always had that. Every Sunday they have the top 40 and they play most of the songs. Certainly play every top 10 song. And when Iron Maiden got to number 1, legitimately, they didn't play it. They refused to play it. You know, and there was an uproar at the time, and, you know, loads of Iron Maiden fans, not just Iron Maiden, but heavy metal fans was like, we're no longer going to listen to BBC Radio because they banned it. I was just curious, because we mentioned it last time. I was curious whether Elizabeth remembers that, but no, maybe she's not that old.
Yeah, I think that was. I'm trying to remember my Iron Maiden discography here. Isn't that like just 1990? I think, or was it like 89?
I think it was round about then, definitely late 80s or early 90s. It was round about then. Can I Play with Madness and all that? I think it was round about maybe early 90s.
Yeah, right. Can I Play with Madness? That's Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, and then they went unsophisticated and went into No Prayer for the Dying, because that's the one where Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter was on.
Right.
Yeah, right. Sorry, I have trivia about discography. I have command that.
It's a problem.
I think both of you are the same in the sense that you would listen to an entire album, whereas I never do that. I mean, I'll maybe listen once, but I don't. You know, I like the kind of hits, if that makes sense. Whereas I think you would buy an album, listen to the whole album. You know.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. Yes, I'm the guy that listens to, you know, 20-minute tracks from start to finish, and then go do the rest of the album. And you know, this is super tangent from our subject, but like I'm the guy who would listen to a band's discography from start to finish, like from the first album. All right, put on the second one, then put on the third one. Like if they have a live album, put that on. And you know, so yeah, I'm kind of nuts.
That's more serious than I am, to be fair. I'll like, you know, like a song and go, okay, well, what's the album? And then start, like, you know, finding like, oh well, I like this other song by them. Like, what album's that from? And then like listen to the greatest hits. Start going, that's a good song. Where's the album? Like that. So I won't go like that.
It's very rare to find a live track that's better than the studio track, though. I mean, the only one I can think of is your latest trick by Dire Straits. The live version of that is awesome because you can hear the crowd. But other than that, I don't know if there's a. Oh, don't let the sun go down on me with George Michael. The live version of that's quite good. Aye, that's quite good. But it's quite rare, I think, to find a live song that you would prefer over the studio version, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're out there because a lot of Dream Theater songs are like that. Because sometimes some of the live versions will be extended and even more soulful than the studio versions. So that's always good. And sometimes live, like I don't have this album, but I have to listen to it. It's so remember back in our music chat, I put on Liquid Tension Experiment, right? Yeah. So that band played. Live, they were making a live recording once, right? And Jordan's keyboard really screwed up from the get-go, and I was playing like some wrong notes on the keyboard, so they had to call the Japanese company, I think it was Yamaha or something, and like in the backstage, and the entire album was the rest of the band just improvising crap.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Grateful Dead, I wanted to get into for years, and I kept trying albums, and I was like, nah. And then I actually spoke to Dean Esme back before he hated me and everyone that I know and like, and was writing for AVFM, and he said, man, you've got to listen to them live. And I was like, really? And so I tried it, and like Grateful Dead live are amazing. But there are like Deep Purple, they're excellent, their live videos. Pink Floyd live in Pompeii is just euphoric. Led Zeppelin, they were good live. They had that thing going on, very soulful and all of that. Pixies are good live because they play a lot of stuff like, slightly differently, which is a bugger when you're trying to sing along, but it's kind of fun and interesting too. It gives you something else when you've listened to all the albums to death. You can like pick up a live album and hear it fresh.
So you mentioned Dean Esme there. Is he still alive?
Yeah, man.
I've not seen him for years, man.
Yeah, he's still alive. I think he's got a Facebook group called Red Pill Religion, but he's very.
I'm not familiar with this guy.
No, he's changed though, hasn't he? I mean, he changed a while back. A few years ago, I think he changed and just went a bit crazy.
Yeah, he finds fault with everyone. He was a writer at AVFM. Was he an editor as well?
I know he was a writer. He made a few videos as well. He was. I think I actually done. I think I'd done a few hangouts with the guy like years ago. He was all right, but he changed. I know he changed. He never said anything about me, but I know he changed and turned against everybody. But I've not heard him for a while.
I'm gonna take your word for it. I don't know who this guy is. I'm kind of green, so I'm kind of a newcomer. So. Yeah.
Favorite console throughout the years? Let's not include the PC.
Okay. Darn. Okay. So I haven't really kept up with the latest consoles much at all. Actually, I think the oldest thing that I've ever played was the PS2. Actually. So I haven't really kept up. I think I was more hooked on things like music and CDs and stuff like that. But to answer your question, I think just for charm alone, the 64. The Nintendo 64. Yeah.
I mean, that was a good one. No, that is good.
Yeah, right. It's the one I still play, and right. And I mean, I've played NES games too. PlayStation 1, of course, that's probably a close second. It's weird asking me, it's like I don't have this comprehensive experience with consoles, and so like I don't know if it's a kind of a noob answer for me, but
That's all right. What about you, Liz? What's yours?
Well, I mean, surely a good game transcends the console. I don't know, I've had a bit. When I was a kid, I mainly played on the Amiga, Amiga Commodore, Amiga 2000 or something like that. And that was fun. And then we went to an exhibition of old gaming at this computer museum, and they had all these old consoles you could play, and I can't remember what console it was on, but they had Pong, which was great, and we played that for ages. And then there was a GameCube that me and the little one played, this Sonic beat 'em up game for hours and hours and hours. And I enjoyed it so much. I did look up, I was on eBay trying to pick one up. And I probably still will at some point. And yeah, we've got a SNES at home, which is a lot of fun. We've got a PlayStation, which the boys have played on. I haven't played on it. I think that's, it's black. It's the first one or the second one? No, the first one was grey, wasn't it?
The first one was grey. The second one was black. PS2.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think the Switch is so user-friendly. It's even I can pretty much navigate what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's good. The Switch is a good console.
Yeah. What is my favourite? I mean, it's given our boys so many hours of fun, and I can join in, and also I just remember, when we unveiled it at Christmas, they already thought that they'd had all their presents.
Oh yeah.
And the little one just looking up at me with these wide eyes going, I really wanted you to get it, but I thought you wouldn't, but you did.
And they can share it as well. That's what's good about it.
Yeah, and they do.
They can share it. That's a great gift because they can share it, But
what's your favourite console?
Probably the PlayStation 2. Because that was when the PlayStation 1 did introduce the sticks on the controller, but the PlayStation 2 came with the sticks, and the DualShock controller, and the games on that were just it's just so many favourites on that console, That would probably, I love the SNES as well, the Super Nintendo, that was amazing. But I think the PlayStation 2 probably my favourite of all. I'd go with that. I think I played that the most out of all of the consoles I've had. But I mean, PC wins because the PC plays everything. But console wise, it would be PlayStation 2 definitely.
Yeah, with the PlayStation 2, there were two games I played. It was Star Trek Voyager Elite Force, which was a lot of fun, and some Crash Bandicoot game.
They're hard. Crash Bandicoot's rock solid, man. Really difficult games, but good fun though. Good fun. Crash Bandicoot's fun.
I think one of the cool things about living now vicariously for me through the boys is the history of gaming. The fact that it's really it's becoming a subject matter in its own right, and like you were saying, gaming is good for reading. I got the little one this history of Mario encyclopedia thing for his birthday recently, and he pores over it, and my eldest is really into the lore of Metroid, and he watches all these videos, and he's got this encyclopedic knowledge of Metroid. And it's it's really interesting to hear them go on about it. And also I think that's another thing that gaming is really good for is imagination. My eldest has this universe that he's devised in his head called the RFK, which stands for Reality for Killing. And it's got all these horrific kind of abominations of nature, as he'd put it, characters, and you know, all this lore, and it's, I think, really a really cool, useful, interesting kind of influence.
Yeah. It was interesting that you mentioned that. Like, the key is for him to don't let that universe go, because, you know, I myself have been cultivating a universe that's been kind of evolving since my childhood, my preteen years, right? And it's still going on, and I'm still going to write a fictional book about it. Yeah, I actually have a completely unique alphabet design, like an alien language alphabet kind, and I know how to write just about anything in it right now. But I've been cultivating it since I was like 8 or 7, you know. So it's like, and you know, it's influenced from anything from video games to well, any other hobbies and stuff like that. And it's just like, it seems like, you know, it does. I do feel like society wants to crush that aspect of boys so they can man up and serve society, you know. Yeah. So, you know, like,
slave.
Yeah, you know, like, they must not let that go. You know, these boys, those universes, don't let it go, you know?
No. I don't think they can crush that, though. Boys' imagination. I don't think they can crush that. But you see the thing with games as well, you get a lot of films that turn into games. Like, one of the ones that I haven't played it, but it does look interesting, is you can run your own Jurassic Park theme park. Jurassic Park theme park game. I think that looks really interesting, you know, like keeping the visitors happy, you know, making sure they don't escape from their cages and stuff like that. And I just to me that sounds quite interesting. It's not actually like a scary game or an action game. Right. It's about the park, that you run the park to run it successfully. Keep the dinosaurs alive and stuff, you know.
It's not a scary action game, depending on how you play it. If you decide to not upkeep the cages and like not give the visitors any water to drink and stuff, it could probably quite quickly.
Maybe
scary
depending
action.
on how you play it, but but
it could be an economic horror. Yeah,
but it's interesting how when movies come out, they've always got like a game. That's not always. It's not always the same the other way around. Not all games become movies, but almost all movies become games. You know.
Yeah.
But games make more. Games make more than the movie industry.
When games do become movies, my understanding as a layman is that they often lose an awful lot, you know, because a movie is contained in an hour and a half max, usually, you know, whereas a game will spread a story out over like hours and hours of gameplay.
Right.
So it's hard to make a movie out of a game. Yeah. I mean, it's been tried a few times. One of the Hitman movies was all right. I watched that Mortal Kombat that came out last week. That was all right. I mean, for an action film, you know, you don't take it too seriously. That was okay, you know. But it really works. It really works. You know, probably the best video game movie isn't even a video game. The Hardcore Henry movie. Have you ever seen that one?
I don't think so. No.
Hardcore Henry's shot entirely in first-person mode from the guy's point of view.
Wow.
It's quite good. It's like a parkour action movie. You know, it's quite a good movie. But it's not even a video game. But when you're watching it, it's like you're watching a video game. It's like you're watching somebody play a video game. It's pretty cool. But it really works. It works the other way around, but from movie to video game, but not the other way around.
Right. When did you get into video games yourself? Because you're the oldest among us. So.
When I was younger, I mean, I remember we had the Atari, you know, the one with Pong.
Yeah.
You know, but I wasn't really that interested in it. But then my dad got a Spectrum, a ZX Spectrum. I think the 48K, I think it was something like that. 48K. It was the old rubber one, and it took cassettes. You know, to load the game, you had to play a cassette, a sound. It loaded by sound, which was quite amazing. And the graphics were rubbish, but it had games like Jet Set Willy, Manic Miner, These are the games. These are ones I can remember. Halls of the Things, which is that my dad was addicted to that game, man. It was really good. So was Chucky Egg platform game, and it was just great. You know, it was just like that. That was when I was younger. You know, that was in like early 80s. You know.
Yeah.
But that was the first I remember playing games, was games like that on the Spectrum.
Right.
And then from there it went to the Spectrum 128, which had like 4 times as much memory or something as the one before.
Right.
It still wasn't a lot, but it was an upgrade, and it had like a real keyboard, not a rubber one, you know. But again, from there, then I moved on to the consoles like the Nintendo and then the Super Nintendo, and I've just always played games, just like I've always listened to music. I've always played games, you know.
Right. Yeah, in my case, so we weren't terribly well off, so we got our consoles later than my friends in school, right? So, right, but before that, we actually had the ironic thing is we had a proper computer before anybody else at school. So, but a lot of my earliest experiences gaming at all is the more educational type things, right? Like the knowledge adventures, that kind of thing. And like I would have a lot of fun just looking at the pictures of like different scientific things, right? And I would learn in the process. But sometimes there'll be these kind of games that like for 3D body adventure, you'd have this emergency room game where you like click on the next patient, they'll tell you what the problem is, and you have to zap all the germs or something like that before the time runs out. And there's another one, 3D dinosaur adventure, that's where you have to save 25 dinosaurs before the comet hits. So stuff like that. And the funny thing is, it's like recently I found like a DOS box for my phone, and I was able to install those old games on my phone, so I would sometimes play them, just strictly for nostalgic sake. Yeah.
It's amazing that you can fit all those games on your phone now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Years ago, you had a full cartridge for one game.
Yeah.
Now you can get them all on your phone.
Yeah, right. If I can find it, I want to show you something real quick. Here are my old CD-ROMs. Like here's IMAX Speed. Here's Science Adventure 2. Yeah. Here's 3D Body Adventure. I think Space Adventure is it's actually in my computer right now. I was playing with it earlier. Yeah, so yeah, like old DOS games,
But most people should have emulators on their PC anyway. You know,
right.
Nintendo. I've got the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, the 64, the GameCube, and the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2. I've also got a Switch emulator, which is quite good, by the way, especially because the Switch is new. So to get an emulator working for that is quite good. But one that I can't get is the 3DS. I mean, I've got it, but it doesn't work very well,
Right.
Which is strange because all of these games are made on a PC, and yet I can't get them to run on the PC. Very strange.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
But hopefully one day, I mean, I think there's a lot of money to be made. Like, if Sony released like an app for the PC where you could download Sony's games, and pay for them, I think they'd make a lot of money. Same with Nintendo. If Nintendo did that, I think they would make a lot of money if you could, because I would gladly pay for them. If you could buy the Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country 2 is one of my all-time favorite games. I'd gladly pay for that if I could play it on the PC. Legitimately. I can play it because I've got the emulator, but I would gladly pay legitimately because I really like those games. I think a lot of people would. But that's the annoying thing about exclusives, where I can't play Ratchet and Clank on my PC, even though I love Ratchet and Clank. So that's annoying because Sony won't release it for this. But it's all business, isn't it?
Yeah, right. a lot of old PC games, with once we're replaced with new computers, you just can't support them. Like there's a Star Trek Deep Space Nine game I want to play, but right now all my computers are new and I just can't install them. So
Nah, it doesn't work.
it just doesn't work. Yeah.
Nah, it's a shame that things like that go out of date, but hopefully emulators sort that problem in the future.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah. So Elizabeth, your gaming experience was primarily through your own kids, right? So you didn't have any childhood experiences of that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I did love my mother's Amiga, which she got to get her, essays written for university on, but I got games on, and we used to get the Amiga magazine that came with a floppy disk with like little kind of previews of games and stuff on.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite games came from that, and it was called Elfmania. And it was like these two sexy elf women, one in like pink hot pants and one in blue hot pants, and they would fight surrounded by men jeering.
I like it already.
Yeah, and then when one of them won, she'd do air guitar and say, "Rock me, baby," and all the men would throw money at her.
Okay.
I mean, you wouldn't get away with that today.
I played that from when I was like 5 years old, and it didn't do me any harm. Look how I turned out.
Yep. Okay. So, is this conversation winding down to a close, or do we have more things to add? I can go on however much as we have energy.
I'm happy to end it only because I'm hungry and need to make something to eat. But
all right.
Yeah. I think I've said all that I had in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was fun. I think we got to the meat of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it for our talk today. We've filled in an hour and a half now. So, yeah, thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Vernon. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure to have you guys. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Hi everybody, thank you for watching this video and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you'd like to see more like it, please consider supporting me on Subscribestar.